I'm Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Eric Green. He is a partner at Green Sklarz, a boutique tax firm with offices in Connecticut and New York. The focus of Eric's practice is civil and criminal taxpayer representation. He is a frequent lecturer on tax topics for national organizations and the author of The Accountant's Guides to IRS Collection and Resolving Tax Debts, and is the founder of Tax Rep LLC, a coaching program for accountants and attorneys. During my interview with Eric, we discuss his journey from playing college football to shifting his focus to accounting and eventually law. In this episode, we discuss his views around marketing, client service, and creating a successful partnership, as well as understanding when you need balance in your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. And I'm here with Eric Green today. Eric, you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself and what you do?
Currently, I am a tax attorney. In a prior career, I was an accountant. Having become an accountant is what made me decide I didn't want to be an accountant anymore. And I went to law school. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but what I found is that I enjoyed the speaking and the teaching aspect. So in order to go get work, get clients, you need to be able to attract clients. And for me, that was show up to a group of accountants, speak, and let the phone ring. And by the way, it works marvelously. About 10 years ago, I had an accountant, CPA, come up to me at one of the talks and said, I would pay you if you would teach me to do this. And I wanted to be a professor. My parents, who were teachers, like, no, don't be a professor. And so I created an 8-hour training course, became a 12, 16, 20, kept growing. Ultimately, I licensed it to CCH. And from that, my practice just exploded because people watched the videos and they would, call and say, I want to refer somebody to you. And after a while, I would tell them, no, don't refer them. You do the case. And they said, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, well, I'll coach you. And that was the beginning of what is now Tax Rep Network, which is a coaching program for about 250 accountants and lawyers, where we help them build their representation practices. So we train them, we consult with them on cases. So I have multiple jobs. I am the managing partner of a 21-person boutique tax firm. I have my books and my speaking, which is how you and I met.
Right.
And I have Tax Rep Network, which is a coaching program. It's a whole online community now. We have a forum and we're actually doing live events. I mean, it's taking on a little bit of a life of its own.
That's very cool. So I want to start backwards. So when you were a little boy, did you want to be an accountant, or what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to play for the New England Patriots.
There you go.
So I played high school football, and I'm an area star, which means nothing. And I ended up going to Hofstra, which was transitioning from Division III to 1AA in Long Island. And I realized pretty quickly I was never going to play professional football.
Why did you realize that?
The game on AstroTurf at the college level, even Division III, moves much faster than it did in high school. And it became obvious to me I did not have the athleticism. For instance, I'm a big believer in you make your own reality and you can do whatever you want. There are limits to that. I will never be LeBron James, no matter how long I
Right.
spend out on the basketball court. It was obvious I was never going to be at that level for
Yeah.
football.
So how did that feel though? Like to make that decision? Was that a hard reality?
I made a decision then that I'm not sure if I still made the right, and I'll tell you in a moment. So I'm going to be an accounting major because I'm good at math. So I'll be a great
So
accountant.
there was no accountants in your family.
I had an uncle, but he had very little to do with me.
Okay.
We were not close. I saw him once a year, and frankly, I don't know that I ever realized he was an accountant until I actually went into accounting, and suddenly I became interesting to him.
Yeah. But why would you choose it? So I understand you're good at math, but how did you even know about accounting?
Well, in high school, they had accounting 1 and accounting 2. So I take accounting 1 and accounting 2. I get straight A's. I'll be great at this.
Right.
It has nothing to do with anything. Accounting 1, accounting 1, as you know, is, yeah, you have a brain, so fine, you can get through accounting 1. But
you can say that. I actually did horribly in accounting 101.
Oh, really? I cost accounting, governmental, advanced accounting. I still to this day have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
All of the intermediate accounting, FIFO, it all kicked my ass. I was the worst. I was the worst accounting major on the face of the planet. Most people, you have like a 3.2, but you're in your major, you're a 3.6.
Right.
I'm reversed. I'm like a 3.2, but in my major, I'm like a 2.7, right? So anyway, but the decisions.
Why did you keep going with it?
I'll get to that in a moment. So the decision that I regretted was, so I get injured. I injured my hip in high school. Now it's college, I injure my hip again. And what the doctors do tell me is, we can't force you to quit, but we highly recommend you consider retirement. We're paying for this. Division III, there's no athletic scholarship.
Right.
And I probably made a smart decision, but it still haunts me that I actually quit. I actually turned in my uniform and walked off, which should I have just ridden it out in the training room to the end and that way just not gone back my sophomore year. The quitting aspect, I think it may be the only thing I've ever quit at.
Really?
For better or worse, that still bothers me, but I didn't really want to be an accounting major. By junior year now, I'm realizing I really am not cut out to be an accountant. I should go into marketing. I'm a great bullshit artist. No, I was the guy. No, so I have two uncles, all right? I have two uncles. One is this CPA who I think when he sat in his chair with his pipe and whatever, he could have died and we wouldn't have noticed. I mean, he really was. He was the typical, although I'll tell you, what's fascinating is I would have told you he was the most boring human being on earth. When my cousin got married, he gave such a talk. His speech, he actually had a personality. He just didn't really care about us.
Right.
And so now on the other hand, my other uncle was forever in business. Whatever he got a deal on, that was the business he was in that week, or month, or year. So I worked flea markets for him and everything. In college, I started t-shirt printing business.
Okay.
So co-ed naked skiing and the bar hopper shirts and absolute Hofstra and all, which by the way is all a complete copyright violation. And the heat starts. They're actively looking for the guy selling the shirts on campus. So I ended up recruiting the cheerleaders. Whichever one lived in that dorm, I recruited, and they would run around because it was for them. It was a quick $50. I would make $300-$500 a night, cash. And so I'm running a t-shirt printing business in college, while I'm an accounting major, not a very good one, and an international business minor, because I thought, wouldn't that make me more attractive? I can assure you, it did not. In fact, most accounting firms would come back to me and be like, well, you just want to go international. And it actually hurt me.
Really? And it's so weird because in today's world that wouldn't, but it's a different world.
I was ahead of my time.
Apparently.
The CCH coaching program, people were like, well, I don't know if I want to do representation. Tax rep, I don't even market. And the thing keeps growing and growing. I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I
Right.
think where 1040s and everything are, accountants, CPAs and EAs have got to elevate themselves. The old days of when you and I were staff,
Yeah.
moving the number from this box into this form and doing it, that's all gone. AI is doing all of that. We need to become, folks have to become high-end consultants. So I do IRS rep, but state and local tax, there's, international tax, forensic accounting, financial planning. I mean, the days of just being a generalist accountant.
Yeah.
But that is the very sort of boring story of my
No, I
career.
think it's interesting because I want to go back to the football story. That the one thing you take away from that is not to quit. So how has that affected you in other decisions in your life, whether that be in business or family or whatever it is? Like, have you found yourself in a position where you're like, I need to stop this, and then you flip in your head like, oh, would this be like quitting when I quit football? Like, how do you like
Well,
have that?
the football thing, there are two. I don't know if it was bad or brilliant, and I'll explain. There were two potentially brilliant things that I decided. So I get into, when I'm being recruited for football, Penn recruited me. Wharton is the number one business school, and I think it probably still is for undergrad in the country. The coaches called me. I'm getting into Penn. I'm not getting into Wharton. And we could not afford, my parents who were school teachers, we could not afford $19,000 a year then.
Wow.
And knowing I wanted to go into business, I made what I think still to this day was the right decision and told my parents, I'm not going to Penn. To go for 4 years, even with Penn as a bachelor's in undergrad, what they told me is I can transfer into Wharton with a 3.85. I was smart enough to recognize I would not go to Penn playing football,
Right,
and get a 3.85 with those other people in my classes and be able to transfer. So it would be 4 years of liberal arts degree at a cost that we could not afford. The other thing is, it bothers me that I had to go stand there and face the coach and quit. That's the part that bothers me. It was probably the smart thing to do because I was injured on crutches. It was affecting my getting to classes, and I was never going to be a professional football player. That had become obvious fairly quickly. So it was probably the smart decision. It just rankles the thought of walking in like that to quit. Really.
but has it affected other decisions you've made?
That's a good question. No, I mean, I've never really thought about it. Is it time to cut your losses sometimes and find the third? There's this book called The Third Door.
Right.
Another way. I did end a relationship with I was engaged and I ended it. I probably did take away the idea that this is not going well. End it now. You know what? I have to say this. I don't tend to be stubborn.
Right.
As far as partially, I think it is. In looking back, it was the right decision. And there are times you cut your losses or have to rethink what you're doing. But I'd also been given one interesting. I wasn't given the advice, but I overheard there was a great attorney at my first audit job, and I overheard him telling one of the other attorneys, "We'll get the deal done. It's not a matter of can we, it's how. How do we get this done?" And I remember thinking that is really brilliant. There's more than one way to get things done.
Exactly.
And so I think that I've taken that away with me is one, don't be so bullheaded that you have to do because you don't. And that there's often another approach, or maybe this deserves a rethink.
Yes.
Rather than beating your head against the wall.
Well, and really that's what you've done in the business you have today. So you've used the experience in accounting, your experience as an attorney, and found another way to be able to deliver those services.
What I think is interesting is everything I've done has led up to this path. So
right.
Sitting and BSing with people in flea markets, I stand up and I tell funny stories about everything that's can go awry in taxes and the phone rings. And people will tell me, you're a great salesman. I don't know why. Teachers knocking on doors and schmoozing with people. And oh, and by the way, I was never much of a drinker. Still am not a big drinker. I happen to like whiskey, but I'll have one.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's about it for me. Well, what do you do in college? Because that is really at the center of everything. I became a bartender. I could be out all night with everybody. I made a lot of money. I was cool, right? Right? I mean, you know, I got injured, my hip. I couldn't work out anymore. So fat Jewish guy with a lisp and glasses. But, you know, I was cool. I got dates. I made money. And I was with everyone. And I didn't have to sit and drink awful beer.
Yes. There's always another way. It's the how.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And all of those little things, those are skills that you actually take into whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Because even, you know, you describing being in accounting and it not being the joy of your life, you haven't really moved. You've pivoted in your career, but you found another way, right?
Right. Well, and you asked me, like, why did I stick with it if I didn't? Because I looked at who was recruiting. Like, I thought, I'll go into marketing, right? I'm a bullshit artist. This is good. I'll go do marketing. And what I found is, you know who was recruiting the marketing majors? Bloomingdale's. Back then, Filene's, which was still in business.
Right.
You know, it was like retail.
Right.
And I'm like, I didn't go to college to work in retail.
Right.
You know, most people think, well, you know, I'm going to go into advertising and I'll be doing Google's new ad. But yeah, no, you're not. You know, it's a very work your way up kind of thing. And so I looked around at management and marketing and didn't want to go into retail. So I thought at least accounting gave me a base, a foundation to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think I got the same advice when I was younger. I'd go to these networking events with my mom and I would ask all the people there, like, what should my major be? And they were always like, accounting. It gives you the background you need to do business. And I think it's true because there's a lot of things there's a lot of people that open businesses, but there's so much they don't understand they might be good at what they do, but they're not understanding the business side of it. And accounting is one of those things that really helps you do that, or you need to hire an expert to help you get there.
Given what I do, we see a lot of people get into tax trouble who are just very good at being a landscaper or a carpenter or whatever they are, right, but they don't have their arms around the business stuff.
Yeah. So you've created your own firm, you know, through your journey. What lessons do you think you bring to your team based on how your beliefs have been matured, I guess, along the way? So, you know, as far as like inspiring your partners or your staff or so forth, and things that you want to make sure that they expand how they think about things or find another way to get there as well.
Well, one thing I think I do exude, I'm trying to think of how to put this. No one client is that important that it's worth doing things that jeopardize our character.
Yeah.
You know, you hear so often that it was a big client, it was a big file. The one thing about being able to market has taught me, there's another client. I'm unwilling to do anything that puts the firm or myself in jeopardy. And we have fired clients and let clients go, including some fairly sizable estate planning clients. If they're not going to listen or they want to do things that we just simply cannot go down that path, we are better off. And then I think if nothing else, we don't have to live in fear of that.
Right.
All right. Being in that world and being able to get clients, what it teaches you is, it's not like, I don't want to make it sound like our clients are not worth it. There's always another client.
No, of course. But
there is some truth to that. That's saying, look, yes, that if this is not a good fit, it may temporarily hurt. There will be another client.
Right. And I think that goes with really defining the kinds of personas you want to work with, because of the culture you create. It's very hard to replace people. And if customers create a different culture in your business, it's something you can't control unless you figure out how to control it. I remember I had in my own business a client that was bringing in, tens of $1,000s a month. But they mistreated my staff over and over and over. And I got on the phone with them. I warned them. I said, this is not the culture that we have here. This is not, I don't know how you interact in your business, but this is not okay for mine. So I gave them a number of warnings, and then I had to make the very hard decision to fire the client. But let me tell you, for my staff, they were so much more loyal to me after doing something like that, because they knew how hard that would be to let go of a client of that size. So it's not about letting everyone go, but it's also understanding, who is it that I want to work with? Who is it that's the right fit for my business? And making sure you define that so that you create happiness in the work environment that you've got.
Well, what's interesting is it is about, to put it a different way, we spend so much time at work, our work.
Right.
There's one of those sayings that, find something to do you enjoy and never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit, glossy, but it goes two different ways. One is the client aspect, like you said. If the client's going to become a cancer, it's got to go. Staff that are going to become a cancer have to go. The one thing Jeff and I and Larry and Mark do is we vigorously are policing the firm. Most of the folks we've recruited and we know, and only once have we had to let somebody go. But if it's going to start heading there, I can't have the whole pool get poisoned.
Right.
Backstabbing, politics, I won't have it. I have no tolerance for it. There are some people that enjoy that. There are some politicians who seem in the White House that seem to enjoy that kind of an atmosphere of people backstabbing each other around. Well, I couldn't abide it. So it is critical that you do that, and also know that you got to this point, there will be another client, there will be something else. But the other thing too is, do keep in mind that you can't erase what hits the internet and what goes on the front page of the newspapers.
Right.
So you really do need, it is about also managing your brand and making sure you don't do things or take on clients that will damage that brand.
Yeah. And I think also, when you kind of go back from your beginning to where you are now, at every stage of our career, we kind of think our career is something different than it is. For instance, when you started out in accounting, you were like, well, this isn't what I expected when I got into it. And then I have to pivot. I go to law school, get into law practices. But then as you get better and better at what you do, you start becoming the leader, and then you're in charge. And that's a whole skill set that I think people don't anticipate how hard it is. Like some of the things you're talking about, of having to make hard decisions about clients or staff or customers or whatever that is. And, you're trained in the expertise of being an accountant and attorney, but how did you make that switch to understanding the people side of leadership? Because that's a really hard shift to make that a lot of people aren't prepared for.
And I don't know that a lot of people do it well.
Yeah.
Managing people is really tough. It really is hard. And partly I think it comes from the marketing, schmoozing with clients, being able to deal with people. But also part of it, I think, is you can't lose sight of what your goal is. Like the harmony in the firm, knowing that is first and foremost, that drives a lot of the way I'm going to react to things. In many ways, we give in on certain, they're not give in, but we'll do certain things that Jeff and I maybe otherwise wouldn't have done. But I know it helps morale. It's good for morale. It's good for the staff. It does create some esprit de corps. And so we do those things, even though Eric would much rather not.
Right.
Because
Well, and it's also figuring out who's better at it than, because like, we all aren't good at the same things. So if he doesn't enjoy doing that part, it might get offset on you because that's something that you're okay doing.
well, I do know that between me and the scary litigators, anytime there's an issue, people like to come to me, not Jeff. I always notice that they always come to me with their problems. And I think it's because they figure I am the more even-tempered of us. But no, and the truth is, you do need to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
You delegate the things that you're not good at to people that are.
Right. Yeah. And so you being in a partnership is again another shift. And so what did you think it would be like versus how have you had to make some shifts in your own way of working to have partners? Because that's hard too.
You know what? There are different. I was a solo,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in a partner. There are different stresses to both. So on the one hand, if you're a solo, you don't have to deal with partners.
Right.
And whatever you decide goes, and it's all on you. The flip side of that is it is all on you. You have to decide these things.
Yeah.
You're never on vacation.
Yeah.
I found, because the phone is, I can't miss the call or get back to people. Now I can leave and I've got a whole team of people that can respond. Cases are still being worked. Hearings are still being held with the IRS, even though I'm not there. I'm in New York talking to Amy Vetter. There's like real shit going on.
Right.
So you take the good with the bad. What I would suggest to people, if they ever want to be partners, be really careful who your partners are.
Mm-hmm.
Choose your partners wisely. Really, it's like choosing a spouse.
Yeah.
Because for better or worse, you're in.
Yeah.
And the worst can be bad. I mean, business breakups can be worse than divorces.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you seen, like changes you've made in your life along the way with your career? How has it affected the people around you?
You had a huge impact. No, I mean, it's all your fault. No.
I was not expecting that answer.
But trying to get more balance in my life had the reverse effect. Like I didn't have it because I felt like I had to do. I always had to keep going. I had to be doing. I had to, or I'm letting everyone down.
Right.
And in rethinking the balance in my life, I am now a better person with the staff. I am more present when they have things to talk about. I can actually do more coaching. If my staff have to go to other companies to listen to my talks to learn something from me, that's a problem.
Right.
And so I think embracing the idea that I need to separate from the business. When I leave in the evening, I'm done. The weekends, I'm now down to like every other weekend. I'll work a little bit. But for a long time, it was 7 days a week. And I'm burned out and I'm tired. I am edgy, probably unpleasant to be around. And that sort of, we create the environment around us. There was this, I think it was in Japan, they did the snowflake thing, experiment where the vibes you put out actually distort or change the crystalline structure of a snowflake. The idea being is that there is something to the aura, the energy that we put out. I'm sure that was affecting other people around. And I mean, and the truth is, like Jeff, all joking and no joking aside, he has been on a tear of trial after trial after trial. He is under severe stress just because,
Right.
So inevitably, his patience is naturally way thinner than mine.
Right.
Who frankly gets to sit in the office and yell, enjoyed storming the castle as they all head out the door to go fight in court. So I think that the balance. The one change that I've made, because I wasn't expecting it, I was very concerned in if I start detaching myself more, is that going to negatively impact things getting done or whatever? I found the exact opposite. By bringing more balance into my life, I think it's brought more balance to the firm.
And that's, I think, a great observation and belief system to break, right? That we can only be so good for so long. Our brains get on overdrive. And the fact that you created that awareness for yourself of that this was happening for you, because a lot of people don't want to admit that. So it takes a lot of strength to admit, you know what, I'm the one creating this energy around me. I need to shift something in my life. Something's not working. Or like you could text me, you're going to jump off a bridge like you did. But
yeah. No, what's funny is, so I'm driving into work when I texted that. And I'm like,
yeah. Which again, you shouldn't be texting and driving. But
I was at a red light.
Okay.
Anyway, but it was one of these where it's just like, there are people who have real problems, health problems, right. Financial. You'd think that this is a good problem, right? You're just so busy. There is such a thing as too busy.
Right.
And you start having these thoughts like, would I be better if I just didn't get up in the morning? Like
right.
if I just, roll over and that was the end. And one of the things I had heard was when you start to get depressed, what you do or should do, consider, is stacking gratitude.
Right.
What are the things that are working? What are the things that are going well? And while I'm driving in, you can listen to YouTube. There's an app that does that. And one of the podcasts I listened to is Impact Theory. And Tom Bilyeu had Ed Milet on. And he was talking about this very thing. He met a friend. The friend said, well, what have you got going? What have you got to be happy? And he was like, jack shit. I got nothing, brother. And the person like, you really have got nothing. But he talked about this stacking. So on my way in, I was thinking about, well, my wife, my family, my partners. I mean, our fights in our partnership are very unique. At the end of the year, we fight about money, but it's usually, no, you take it. No, you take it. No, we don't fight. There's no greed.
You're right.
And that is, that is what my understanding is fairly unique.
Yes.
Among firms.
Yeah.
So there's really a lot. So my thought is there's really a lot to be thankful for. So things are actually, things are good. Do not get depressed. They're good. I need to get my arms around it. I need to make some changes.
Right.
But I've got a nice piece of granite to work from.
Right.
I'm going to carve. I got stuff to work with. Because I have lawyers as clients who can't pay their bills.
Right.
And it's so you do need to it's hard. You need to enjoy the little victories and enjoy it as you go on. That is so hard. Like when people tell me enjoy it, it goes quickly. I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
70 years they're assuming I lived to 100. Only 70 or 80 years. What are you talking about? Now I'm feeling it. Now I'm like, my clock's ticking. I mean, I gotta enjoy this while I can.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's an important point to make of not running away in those moments and giving everything up is like, where do I need to just stop and pause, listen to other experts, go find a therapist, whatever you need to do, find some outside activity to relieve that stress. But sometimes we get in these cycles of we feel like we have to do everything, control everything, and it's just not possible. It's not humanly possible, and we're not at our best. Like you said, then you get burnt out. So I think it's just such a great example that you shared, and important for people to know that from the outside, someone can look really, really successful, but there's inner turmoil going on in most people, and they're not wearing it on the outside, for everyone to see. It's our personal journey that we each have to take to get ourselves on that even keel.
Well, people see Amy and the TED Talk and the 2 books and, your keynote speaking here and there. What they don't see is everything that went into that.
Exactly.
The good and the bad.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's people talk about, same thing, books, and you're at every major conference. Well, people don't realize I get up at 4 a.m. and get PowerPoint slides done and get all that stuff done. And went and spoke. I once spoke in a karaoke bar for a group, and somebody fell asleep actually in the front row. I'm not kidding. I'm on this karaoke stage in this crappy bar in Connecticut, giving this talk to people who clearly don't care. And I mean, everyone does that.
But that's how you get experience, and again, it's having your eye on the bigger goal, the bigger vision, and not thinking that things come just at the snap of your fingers when looking at someone else. But so I want to end, I always ask some rapid fire questions. So you have to pick a category first, and then I ask you the question. So the category is family or friends, money, spiritual, or health. Health. Okay. So things or actions I don't have that I want with my health.
I have an issue with food addiction, to the point where if I'm going to be engaged the same time you are, I am not thinking about the talk or being there or the beauty of it or whatever. I'm thinking about, where are we going to dinner? What crap can Eric eat while he's in Vegas and his wife's not there to watch him? And so for me, I think I have an unhealthy relationship with food that I continue to need to work.
Yeah. And we all have to notice and figure out how to work with that. Absolutely. So things or actions I do have that I want with my health.
I have been going to the gym fairly consistently.
Good.
Yep.
Awesome.
Which is good. I got to keep that up.
Yeah. Make time.
Yep.
All right. So things or actions I don't have that I don't want with my health.
Things that I don't have that I don't want. I can think of a lot of things. Cancer. I mean, I think I don't want to take my health for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Both my grandfathers died in their early 60s.
Yeah.
So, now, true, medical technology has improved to the point where what they died of, I probably will not. But I can't assume I'm going to be around till 85 or 90 or longer. So I think it's not really the answer to your question.
No, it is.
I don't want anything. I don't want any really ugly, nasty illnesses. But the bigger thing is try not to take my health
for granted. Yeah. All right. So last one. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want with my health.
I drink way too much coffee.
Okay.
Coffee's healthy, but not when you give yourself arrhythmia. Every afternoon from it. I actually ended up going to my doctor. I'm like, I keep getting that racing heart sensation. And he's like, so we EKG, everything. I'm fine. They don't see anything. And finally he says to me, how much coffee you drinking a day? I'm like, 6, 7, 8 cups. And he said, do you drink any diet soda? And at the time I did. I'm like, yeah, probably 3 or 4 cans. And he's like, maybe you should just cut back on the caffeine. Let's see if it just clears up. But meanwhile, he did send me to, I'm blanking on a heart specialist, cardiovascular doctor the box for 24 hours. Nothing wrong with me. They were like, yeah, just keep it to 2 cups a day for a while if you can. I have a really bad habit of inhaling caffeine.
Yeah.
That is something I wish I could stop.
All right. Well, awesome. So from this conversation that we had today, just to end with, I want to make sure to give you an opportunity. If there is anything you want people to come away with as your message, and anything about your company as well that you would like people to know.
Well, the message, I think, there are a bunch of them, is it's very easy to become depressed over whatever the problem is ahead of you. Do stack gratitude. Keep in mind the things you do have working. Go get help. Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I sat at lunch, or we talked. When you were at the Starbucks near Hartford, we could sit and talk, and I always come away with things are not dire. It's good to have a board of directors, which can be family, but it may be other colleagues. It can be people in other industries you're just friends with. But keep in mind all the good things you've got going on, and don't be afraid to pivot.
Right.
I like this, but I really don't like this. And I know this is traditionally what I should be doing, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to take it in a different direction and go with it. Go for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, where can people find you if they want to find out more about what you do?
If you Google Eric Green, there's tax. There's a lot of stuff out there. Tax Rep Network, which is the coaching program, is taxrepllc.com. Tax Rep Network podcast is on every major podcast channel: Google, iTunes, Apple. And the law firm Green Sklarz. We're in New Haven, and you can certainly find us there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on, and I really appreciate how authentic you were during this interview, and hopefully a lot of people learned from some of your messages today.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
And now for mindful moments, where we just take some time to pause and think about the discussion that we just heard with Eric, and some areas that I noted that I think are really important for us to think about. And one is just really going back into our past and understanding how we even got to where we are and why we made the decisions that we did, and maybe how some of those decisions have affected us internally without us even realizing it. And when Eric talks about quitting football, you can feel the emotion behind that decision and the way that he felt he went about it, whether it was right or wrong, but that have stuck with him all of these years since. And I think it's important that we do identify those moments in our lives where maybe we weren't as happy the way we made a decision, or we are happy about a decision, but actually making that intentional observation of how it might have affected us internally, or the decisions that we make in the present moment because of something that happened in the past. And when he really talks about quitting, you can feel the emotion behind it and how we resolve it in our heads to make sure either we don't make the same mistake that we feel we made, or how it affects our decision-making ability into the future. He also talked about really that whole notion of it's not a matter of can we get something accomplished, but it's the how. And I think that's really important for all of us in our careers, that often we hear a lot of no's, where people come up with ideas and everyone around will go, oh, it can't happen because of this, or it can't happen because of that. And there's a lot of no's. And I think it's important that we step back in those types of discussions, and instead of immediately saying no or thinking about the how, the details, and so forth, it's stepping back from a higher level and saying, is this possible? And brainstorming it. Because there usually is always a way to make something happen. It may not be the way that you envisioned it originally, but when you brainstorm it and think about different ways to get to the same result, sometimes you come up with an even better idea than where you started. Another big important point we talked about was about client service and when clients don't fit with our model. And I think for a lot of us, we don't necessarily define the clients, the customers that we want to work with, and whether that fits into our culture. Now, it's really important that it's not just about us getting business, that when we're bringing customers or clients into our business, that we're interviewing them for a good fit as well, because replacing staff is a lot more expensive than any one customer. And we need to protect our culture, number one, that people feel valued, whether that be from the people they work with or from the customers that you interact with. And we can all create a culture where people feel safe around the customers and the staff. And in order to do that, we have to monitor that culture. We have to monitor those interactions and police it to ensure that we are able to create the kind of business and environment that we intend to create. We can't just expect it to happen. We have to actively working on it. Another really important observation that I had was when he was talking about his partners and the partnership that they had and how unique it was. And when he talks about that none of them have any greed, it's more about, no, you take this or you take this. And that is so different than many of the partners that I've ever worked with as clients, that we don't always see that partners put others first, that everyone's usually looking at it from their own perspective. But really, when you look at successful businesses have leaders that put the business before themselves, before their own ego. And this is a really important lesson about whether we have greed or not in the work that we do, or whether we're serving for a higher purpose and we understand why we do what we do. And at the end of the day, are just happy to be doing it and want to share in the benefits or the rewards that we have together. And lastly, I felt honored with Eric that he shared his own emotional turmoil that he's gone through, and he's shared with it personally, where we've had many discussions as well. But the fact that he's sharing it with all of you as well is important, because he's really gone on a journey himself of rethinking his life and making sure that he is living in the present moment, that he's not getting overloaded. And he also is ensuring that the energy that he's creating for the people around him, whether that be at work or his family, that he cares enough about them to do the work on himself. So what I'd like you to leave with is to ensure that we aren't looking at, when we work on ourselves, when we try to figure out why we feel burned out, rather than being negative about those issues. Instead, looking at our lives and saying, what could I say no to? Where can I put boundaries in my life? And what things are not feeling good? And how can I continue to be grateful for what is wonderful in my life? So leaving today, I want you to do what Eric was talking about having this gratitude practice, this stacking practice of what are you grateful for today, rather than focusing on the negative, and figuring out, are you proud of the energy that you're putting out in the world? And if you don't feel good about it, what could you do differently tomorrow to start making those little shifts in your life so that you create the kind of environment that you want to have with those around you? Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.